welcome to the Bigger Boat podcast. We are the movie podcast going through Steven Spielberg's back catalogue one by one. And today we're going to speak about Saving Private Ryan. My name's Luke, and as always, I'm joined by my friend Joey. Hey, mate.
Hello, how's it going?
I'm very well, thank you very much. How are you?
I'm very glad I'm not in World War II.
Yes, as am I.
Yes. Very happy to be here, having a cup of tea with you, talking about this movie.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Obviously, it's been quite full on.
What, the World War II?
Living my life.
Living your life.
Yes. I've been a bit ill recently.
Okay.
I actually just asked Luke a medical question before pressing record. And
I've told him to put some cream on it and it'll be fine in 1 week.
Okay. I just won't mention it to anyone else. It's fine. Got away with that one.
Yeah, nailed it.
How about you? How have you been?
Yeah, I've been all right. Thank you very much. We haven't recorded in a few weeks, have we?
No, we haven't. No.
So we've had a bit of a. We were on a break together, weren't we?
We were on a break.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't me. It was you.
It's true. Just needed some space.
Yeah. He couldn't stop watching the adult version of this movie called Saving Ryan's Privates. So
it's a problem, and I don't really want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't Saving Ryan. No, it's not Saving Ryan's Privates. It's Shaving Ryan's Privates.
I've heard both. I should say I've seen both. No,
what would Saving Ryan's Privates involve?
You have to save those parts.
For what?
Reproduction.
As opposed to
taxidermy? I don't know.
That's so random. Oh, that's disgusting. Think about. You're welcome, listener. Anyway, please don't switch off. We will be starting to talk about the movie fairly soon. So actually, there's some stuff that happened on Twitter in the last couple of weeks that we haven't talked about. So did you see that we got a tweet from Bob Balaban?
Yes.
Which was very exciting. So we asked him the question, because Bob Balaban, obviously famous actor, but was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yes, he plays the translator.
The translator, exactly. And we heard, and I think we mentioned this in our Close Encounters episode, that he had pretended to learn French for the role.
Yes.
And then sort of just made it up made it up at the audition, and then had to frantically learn some French in order to actually fulfill the role.
Yes.
So we asked Bob directly about this, and he got back to us.
Yeah, he sent us quite a nice long message.
It was a nice long message. So Bob said, When I met Steven Spielberg and Julia Phillips for Close Encounters, I had a decent French accent, but I couldn't really speak French. So when asked to say something, he recited a poem he learnt in 8th grade. No one in the room understood what he was saying, and he got the job.
Well, hey!
Which was quite cool.
That is quite cool.
It's quite exciting getting messages from
famous people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is good.
The day that he replied,
yeah.
I was at work. Towards the end of the day, I was having been excited about that. Towards the end of the day, we started talking about Friends.
Yeah.
The sitcom, and she was like, oh, okay, yeah, brilliant. And then someone saying, oh, my favourite character was always young Frank Buffet.
Okay.
I was like, oh, right, who we're actually going to see in Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
wait,
yeah.
Who played them? Who played young Frank Buffet?
The medic in...
Giovanni Ribisi.
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
And then, as we were talking, suddenly something clicked. I was like, hang on. I think the guy who played Frank Buffet Sr. is Bob Balaban.
Well, okay.
So I IMDb'd him, and it was.
So you got the message on the same day?
Yeah. Small world.
It is weird how things like that happen, isn't it?
Yeah.
But also this week in Twitter, we found out Frank Marshall and Kathy Kennedy are getting an Oscar.
Yes, that's right.
The Irving Thalberg Award for producing.
Yes.
And that was...
It's contributions to cinema, isn't it?
Yeah, generally, yeah. And that Steven Spielberg received that same award back in the 80s, I think, before he won his actual Best Director Oscar.
Cool.
Which is cool. Did you watch a film in the last week or so?
I did.
Yeah.
I know we keep mentioning it because it seems like we have both sort of seen a lot of his films recently.
Yeah.
And we both always say they're not quite for me, but for some reason I found myself watching another Wes Anderson. I watched The Grand Budapest Hotel.
So that's
which
Wes Anderson films in the last couple of weeks, isn't it? Yeah.
Which I have to admit I really enjoyed.
There's nothing to admit about it. It's a great film.
It is genuinely funny.
I love it. It's so funny.
A lot of Wes Anderson's, as if you listen to our podcast regularly, you'll know we're quite they're flat characters in a flat world. But this really worked. It was really funny. Mm. And did you see there was a little part by Bob Balaban?
Was there as well?
Yeah, just a very quick shot where they're calling all of the different hotels, and the receptionist always picks out one of them is Bob Balaban.
That's true. Yeah. I do really like that film.
Yeah, I have to admit, for all of my sort of like, I'm getting a bit sick of Wes Anderson, that genuinely sort of lifted me up again, and I'm like, oh yeah, he is quite good.
It's because it's Ray Fiennes, and he's just
so
good.
He is so good.
He can act like, just having spoken about Schindler's List a few weeks ago, having someone who can act that evil and then be this funny in a movie.
Yeah,
it's just remarkable. He's one of the best actors of our generation, I think.
There are times where it's just like, you could tell even if that was in a script, it wouldn't be that funny. It's all in his delivery.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
Because it's on Netflix now, isn't it?
Yes, that's why I watched it, yeah.
Yeah, so check it out. It is one of my favourites.
Yes, it's up there with Rushmore. I think those two are my favourite.
Yeah. Very good.
How about you? Did you watch a film this week?
I was having to think about this today because I knew you'd ask me. And I was going to say, actually, I haven't really I haven't watched that many films. I've been on holiday. But then I realised I did watch a film with my wife a few weeks, and it's just one of the most embarrassing films I've watched. So now it's coming up. So we're recording this pre-Christmas, but obviously this will be released post-Christmas. And Netflix has started to release its sort of spade of Christmas originals that are made for super cheap and trying to make a bit of money, all with the same plot and all super embarrassing and cheesy.
Yeah,
I've watched those.
So, right.
So I watched one called...
Because there's one with Kurt Russell, isn't there? Like a series, the Chronicles or something.
Apparently, that's meant to be quite good.
Is it?
Because surely Kurt Russell as Santa Claus is the perfect thing.
Yes.
However, you
watch Snake Plissken
exactly
in Escape from New York, and you thought, what a brilliant Father Christmas he's going to be.
Absolutely. But instead of watching something with Kurt Russell in it, I watched something with the girl from High School Musical in it.
Right, Vanessa
Hudgens. Yeah.
Yes.
What's the film called?
She like twins or something?
Yeah, the Princess Switch.
That's Princess Switch.
The Princess
I've seen the image on my homepage. Yep,
you've seen enough. No, that's actually being harsh. So, in fairness, I watched it because my wife wanted to watch something mind-numbing, and I did. It was all right. It was better than the other film that she'd watched, which was called The Christmas Prince, which was awful. However, the Princess Switch was broadly fine. It's like one of those typical stories like The Prince and the Pauper, where Vanessa Hudgens, who's a baker, goes to another country, finds a princess who looks exactly like her, coincidentally, and then, yes, hilarity ensues as they switch places and fall in love with their dream person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Do you have a favourite Christmas movie, by the way?
I see how you moved on briefly. I've got no chat about the Princess.
I've got no time for it.
Fair enough. Well, I don't want to be the one who says Die Hard because...
Oh, you went there, okay.
What's that?
Because it's the whole thing, isn't it? About
it's
whether
the whole
it's a Christmas movie.
So I know, Die Hard is a great movie, and we're not going to get into debate because it happens every year about whether it's a Christmas movie or not.
Yeah.
I think it probably is. However, can I have to think about that?
Yeah. I love, I think it's called Santa Claus the Movie with Dudley Moore.
Okay.
And John Lithgow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Very good.
I remember it being really good. I haven't watched it for 10 years or something, but...
I thought you were going to say the Santa Claus with Tim Allen.
No, I remember that being okay.
That's not bad.
I also haven't seen Elf, and Elf is going to be really good. Elf
is good. I know it's a lot of people's favourites, but I think for me, I'm going to say Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, yeah, good one.
Yeah, thank you. Because the songs are great. Actually,
great characters.
Well, are they? Jack Skellington's a bit of a bastard, isn't he? I guess he is.
No, he's just misunderstood.
No, I think he's actually a bit of a bastard to, what's her name, the girl?
Sally.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
He's very self-centered.
He's very self-centered. But, it's got Oogie Boogie in it, which is great.
It's true.
Yeah, let's go The Night Before Christmas. I choose that one.
Okay, cool. Because I remember I carved a pumpkin of Oogie Boogie.
I remember.
Halloween.
When we lived together.
Maybe we'll put some pictures up.
And I did one of the Thundercats. I have those
pictures.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Thundercats logo. I was very pleased with myself because I've got no artistic talent whatsoever.
You're like, I did something creative.
So, should we probably start talking about Saving Private Ryan itself?
Yes, let's do it, because I think we'll probably have quite a lot to talk about soon.
Yeah. This is Spielberg. Is it his first proper war movie?
Well, are we including 1941?
No one's including 1941 in any list beyond.
Are we including any Indiana Jones movies?
Well,
because I watched the behind-the-scenes little documentary of Saving Private Ryan, and he admits he's always had a huge sort of interest in war movies. I mean, okay, fine, not World War II, but Empire of the Sun?
Okay, I give you Empire of the Sun, yes. But again, they're not really focused on the war. They're more stories about things that happened in as a setting. And
That's true.
a war movie itself, I
And
think...
Spielberg even admits that Schindler's List he sees more as a sort of piece of humanity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than the actual war. It's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
It's not really about the war, the Allies and the
Yeah.
Nazis fighting each other, is it? So
No. You're right. So he does have that he has had that obsession the entire time. I know he's made like one of his first films that he made when he was like 13 or 14 years old. He made some, what was the name of it? It was
Escape to Nowhere?
Escape to Nowhere, which is a World War II adventure. And then another one called Fighter Squadron about the Air Force.
Yeah.
And so he made these when he was a young teenager. And then, although the war, like you said, Jerry, has had a bit of influence in some of the movies as a setting, it's taken him till his late 40s or so to actually make a proper war movie.
Yeah.
Which I found quite interesting. Also, especially the fact that he's had, decades now already of being able to make whatever movie he wanted to.
Yeah, but we have noticed before that it feels like he has like a 10-year sort of gap between a will to make a particular type of film
Yeah.
and then actually getting it done.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's been on the fringes of his mind for quite a long time before actually making a full war movie. Don't you think?
He is a busy man.
He's a very busy man, yeah.
And also, we mentioned, I think, in our last episode when we talked about Amistad, the fact that he'd set up his own studio, DreamWorks.
Yes.
And this was one of the big films that gained quite a lot of critical praise and audience praise.
Yes.
Which sort of put DreamWorks on the forefront of being a major studio. Yeah, so it is odd because he would have seen, I guess Spielberg would have seen around that time some of his, we mentioned his Brat Pack at the beginning, didn't we, of his filmmakers of his age.
Yes.
Of his sort of, the people he grew up in films with, making war movies of their own.
Yeah, which includes people like Francis Ford Coppola.
That's what I was thinking, Apocalypse Now as the main one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of, Scorsese hadn't really made one, or Lucas.
No. I mean, Lucas sort of always sort of says Star Wars is a bit war-ish, and especially like the cinematographer for Star Wars, Gilbert Taylor, he's something like the special effects supervisor for the Dam Busters. Yeah. So that whole sequence about hitting a specific target was basically like taken and put into the last third of Star Wars.
Okay. I mean, I don't still Star Wars isn't really
it's not really a war movie.
Yeah. Maybe Kubrick and Full Metal Jacket as well.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. So he's seen his contemporaries make war movies. Yeah. And I'm sure he would have thought about adding to it at all. Although those two films provide pretty high bars, don't they? For what they want to say about war.
I guess you would have had Oliver Stone's
Platoon as well. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Early 90s, isn't it?
Yeah, probably late
80s. 92 or something, 91?
Was it? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Fine. So, yeah, interesting. And this was being made at the same time as Thin Red Line as well, wasn't it? Terrence Malick's.
Yes.
Which I know some of the actors had to decide between which one of those films were going to go in.
Really? Yeah, it's got a lot of big names in it.
Thin Red Line. Tom Sizemore turned down Thin Red Line to do Saving Private Ryan.
Really? Have you seen the Thin Red Line?
I can't get on with Terrence Malick's films.
It splits a lot of people, yeah.
I haven't seen it.
I have to say it's not his best.
Yeah. Like, I know everyone says Badlands is a classic.
Yeah, I love Badlands.
You love Badlands. I remember watching it when I was like 18. I was just like, and the fuss is about what? Maybe I just watched it when I was too young, but no.
Well, that's the thing about Badlands. It got like a huge critical acclaim.
Yeah,
but it did make such little money at the box office
because it's boring.
It's not
like
it's
all of Terrence Malick's
films. Got a poetic charm to it.
Snorefest.
Oh, there you go. You're just retaliating because I said bad things about Vanessa, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. How dare you knock the princess switch? It's a contemporary classic. So, do you have like a favourite war movie then at all? Or you know what? Actually, I'm going to ask that question afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah. So, should we just go and watch the movie?
Yes.
And then we'll talk about what we thought about it afterwards.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So if you're watching along with us, as always, please do. We will be talking about full spoilers of Saving Private Ryan after we come back. It isn't available on any streaming services that I could see on Hulu, Amazon Prime, or Netflix. So you might have to rent it, or you might have a copy somewhere. So dig it out. So we will see you after
3 hours.
Oh no.
Okay, see you Longley.
No, that sounds so crap.
Okay.
No, leave it in. So we're back.
Yes, welcome back.
What did you think?
It feels quite long.
Yeah. Okay, I think it's really good to start off with.
It is
before
really
we
good.
Before we get too negative or people get too angry at us.
Yeah.
But like we've just been saying this beforehand, like as we've got more and more in the podcast, you start to look at the running times now of Spielberg films and just go, oh,
yeah,
God.
Yeah, as his power's gone up, the length of his movies has increased significantly. Do you think that maybe has that become our, because they say like we have really short attention spans now and things. Do you think that's a symptom of everything being about an hour long because we have hour-long episodes of very high-budget television shows now?
I don't think so. I think 3-hour movies have always felt like 3-hour movies.
That's true.
However, and I appreciate that some movies need that longer running time.
Yes.
Especially something like a war movie, because there's so much to tell and so much you could tell. And Spielberg, even later on, we haven't talked about this yet, but a couple of years later, he'll help produce Band of Brothers, the HBO miniseries about, telling that story over about 10, 12 hours. These are long stories which you can be protracted and can be drawn out.
Yes. But to quote Alfred Hitchcock, he said, "The length of a film should depend entirely upon the human bladder."
Did he say that?
Yes, he did.
And did he say it in that voice?
Of course he did.
I mean, sure.
I'm going to do an impression of Joe Dawson. I suddenly become Winston Churchill.
That's not Winston Churchill either.
It is.
I don't know who that is.
It's Gary Oldman.
Okay.
Who was doing Winston Churchill.
Got it. But other films like, let's say, Schindler's List, again, that I think needs to be... You can't tell that story in an hour and a half.
No.
But when you've got other like films like Always, which is over 2 hours, or...
or like Hook was 2 hours 20.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a kid's film.
Yeah. You can tell these in 90 minutes or just over. And I think a bit of brevity and a bit of kill your darlings, Who said that?
I know that saying.
You know the saying.
Yeah.
Who wrote Aldous Huxley? Okay. Is that right? No. Allen Ginsberg said it.
Okay.
Allen
I don't know who he is, but yeah.
So yeah, be strict. Get rid of your favourite bits because your art will be better for it because But I'm not sure if this is the right film to talk about that aspect of it because it might deserve the story it's trying to tell may deserve that length.
Yes, true.
And that attention span.
Yeah.
But
it's certainly a very epic.
It is an
story.
epic film, and actually for this one, I did feel it breeze through.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
It went quite quickly for me because it's very action.
It's just the fact that it takes up your whole evening is what we're talking about. Yeah. Not that it's boring because it isn't boring. It is actually really well paced.
Exactly. But we are recording this at 3 a.m.
Yes, that's true.
So yeah, no. What did you think of the movie overall, though?
Overall,
because when's the last? Actually, no. Let's start off. When's the last time you saw it?
Right.
Because we've both seen this movie before a number of times, I'm sure.
The last time I watched it was probably about 12 years ago. Okay. It's been a long time. And I think I feel about this the way you felt about Schindler's List, because I remember you being surprised that I said I had casually just watched it by myself. Mm-hmm. Because this is so harrowing, and I remember it being quite graphic. Yeah. This is, I think this is a 15 rating.
It is a 15,
I think it was one of the first 15s I ever got into.
I think it's the same for me. And
yeah, I definitely saw it at cinema, and I remember it being a true cinematic experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the first time I can really remember being conscious of surround sound. Being in the cinema and feeling like the bullets were going past my ears.
Yeah.
Whistling past my ears. Mm-hmm. And all of that kind of stuff. I felt very in the middle of... basically we're talking about the beach scene at the beginning.
Yes, yeah.
You feel very plonked in the middle of it, in that sort of overwhelming, oh my, what is going on? Yeah. And it's also kind of like the first time I was aware of all of those white gravestones and all of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. That sort of thing made quite a big impression.
The violence was... I remember being surprised by it when I was a kid, going, I can't believe they're doing that. I'm seeing this on screen. I mean, I'd never really been exposed to that much gore as a teenager. I was never really one of those horror nerds or anything like that. But so watching Saving Private Ryan was the first time I saw, people being blown up in half.
Yeah.
People exploding.
Yeah.
Limbs falling off. People flying through the air like that. And it's the way it's shot as well. It makes it harrowing because it feels so real.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels very uncomfortable. Doesn't it feel like you can feel the sand between your toes getting in your boots and all of the mud?
And this is the entire aim of it. And this is why Spielberg is... This
how red the sea is with blood. And
actually, that scene... So this is the Omaha Beach scene, which is the first 25 minutes of the film, apart from the scene at the graveyard. So it's the first 25 minutes as we're meeting all of our main characters. This sort of, for me... is probably the scene I think about when someone says, "Oh, name a war movie scene."
Yeah.
That is ingrained in my brain.
Yeah, there's certain shots which are just
absolutely iconic. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're there to stay.
Yeah. So, and it's just, I think the way he shot it is just very impressive. So, watching it again, and with my eye out for how he's doing things, it reminded me a lot of Schindler's List. In the fact it's very documentarian.
Yes.
You feel like the camera is almost like a character. The camera is at an angle on the floor with the soldiers.
Yes.
It is looking at people really up close while horror's happening all around them. It is documentarian.
Yes, I heard that is how he did it.
Mm-hmm.
What we're talking about really is staging first and then thinking about where you're going to put your cameras.
Yeah.
So it's very much like, oh, this is just happening.
Yeah.
Spielberg is usually, if you go and watch something like Jaws, you can see that both the action that's actually happening in the room and the cameras are very well choreographed together.
Yeah.
For a certain effect. This is very much like, I just happen to be capturing this. Yeah.
So I read that he was very quick with his sort of takes. He allowed a lot of improvisation of people moving just to make it seem more natural.
Yeah.
And if there was like a bit of blood spatter or a bit of rain spatter on the camera, he just let it go.
Yes.
And sometimes even some of the takes and the shots you see, they have stains on
they do.
them, and it's not as in
one
focus.
One of the first times you see that is when they're... What do you call those boats that they're on? They're more like crates, actually.
You mean the ones that sort of fold out into ramps?
Yes.
As they can go... I don't know what
when they're approaching the beach. But the crates, which are sort of like ships, that the front folds out and the soldiers run.
Yeah.
Because remember, it just begins with them getting machine gunned.
Yeah.
And there's a shot from behind. You see all of their helmets, and then just blood goes on the lens.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yes, I remember why this was quite so harrowing. When that shot came.
Yeah. And then you've got the camera going in and out of the water, so you've got a shot above water and then a shot below water.
Then other things, like technical things, which I don't remember seeing before this movie is... And it became quite a feature of films afterwards. Things like 28 Days Later does this quite a lot. Like the shutter speed on the camera? Mm-hmm. So if there's an explosion, it's weirdly in focus.
Yeah.
The dirt that from the ground as there's a grenade go off.
Yeah, sure.
It feels like you could see each individual little bit flying through the air and all that kind of stuff. He plays with time quite a lot in that first sequence, doesn't he? Slows it down. And then...
He does, yeah.
It sometimes, he deals with sound... just incredibly well.
Mm-hmm.
It goes from manic craziness
to underwater.
And everything sort of slows down, and it's got that sort of submarine kind of sound to it. And then there's other times where it's Tom Hanks just looking,
and you've got like
and
the
he goes inwards.
Yeah.
He goes inward.
Yeah.
That's right. And you just have the ringing in the ears, and then you see people's mouths, and suddenly they keep saying the same thing, and slowly it comes out what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
All that stuff. It feels so real.
It does, and I like the fact that you don't know the characters at this point. You don't know who you're going to be following. You're just, these are the soldiers, and
yes, you do know it's Tom Hanks. As soon as you see Tom Hanks,
you see Tom Hanks, but you don't know who are the main characters, the other main characters you're going to follow as part of the group until towards the end.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it's just this bloodbath, and I think that you're meant to represent these guys are all just seen by above as expendables, who don't need to be named, and this is like meant to be the second wave of D-Day landings, isn't it?
Yes.
Which means that by the time they get on the beach, there's already a mountain of dead soldiers on the beach, and that's what they arrive to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm right, by the time Tom Hanks gets the guy who's got the typewriter who becomes the very nervous soldier. That's day 3 of D-Day landing.
Is that right?
I think so.
Okay.
By that point, yeah. But I don't know if there's a day overlap or whatever.
Sure.
But yeah, because it said D-Day +3, so presumably that means
Yeah.
yeah, it's the 3rd day of the landings. And one thing that I wrote down because I felt it was sort of almost like a point of interest. Because we're so much from Tom Hanks' point of view, and we talked before the Hitchcockian technique of how you do that. Lots of shots of Tom Hanks reacting to stuff, not really saying very much, but it makes you feel very much like you're in his shoes.
Yes.
That moment where he's on that beach, and do you remember those 2 guys come up to him and say, "What should we do now, sir?"
Yeah.
And in that all that chaos, like that is itself overwhelming.
Yeah.
You've got all of this danger flying at you.
Yeah.
All those bullets or grenades, landmines, and someone asks you, right, what should we do?
Yeah.
You know, and you're the person in authority. It's quite overwhelming.
And just in that dialogue, it sets up the characters, doesn't it?
Yes, and he's very calm.
He's not said anything until that point, but you know everything you need to know about him at that point.
And I like the fact that his reply is, it's not militaristic.
No.
It's very human.
It's pragmatic, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's like, I'm just a guy as well, sort of tone.
Yeah.
And not like not like the drill sergeant in a Full Metal Jacket screaming.
Yeah, true. I think watching this scene again, the way because like I said, I always had it in my mind as being like on a massive scale, this big beach scene.
Yeah.
But when you actually look at it, it is still actually in a very contained, small area.
Yes, it's certainly not more. It's not more than that 100 meters worth of beach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the only reason I noticed that, I think, is because of some films since then, like Dunkirk or Atonement, in which you've got those beach scenes of soldiers on the beach, in which the camera doesn't do you're with the soldiers, it pans out, it looks at the whole breadth of everything.
Yeah.
You see these massive wide shots of a huge amount of extras on the beach. And that made this feel a bit more small and personal.
Yeah.
But I can imagine when I first saw it, I thought that this was huge, expansive, and there's millions of extras as well. But really, it's actually quite contained.
I think that's what the sound can do. The sound can really extend the world. I mean, especially if you watch it in the cinema, you know, you could literally just be having, all you're seeing is the close-up of Tom Hanks' face.
Yeah.
But the sound of the distant gunfire and all of that
makes
stuff makes it feel absolutely huge.
Yeah.
There is one huge shot, which is sort of over the sort of top of the hill.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
And there's lots of zeppelins in the air and planes and more people arriving.
But because you're right, because it's been filmed on a personal level, it makes it seem bigger when it actually isn't.
Yes, it's true. Yeah.
They were going to film that. So apparently they were going to try and film that in Britain. But and they wanted to use some actual soldiers as the extras, but the British Army wouldn't lend them. So
really?
That's why they moved to Ireland, and the Irish were like, "Yeah, sure, have our army." And so that's Irish Army extras, and a few amputee extras as well, who are the people who lose their prosthetic limbs.
Yes, there's one horrific bit where there's one guy just searching for his arm.
Searching for his arm,
picks it up, and you can just imagine someone doing that in their confusion. Oh, I'm going to need this. And picks up their own arm and. Yeah, it's really bad.
Absolutely horrific.
Yeah. So, tell you what it reminded me of, because I watched it when it was on iPlayer only a few weeks ago. Did you actually watch They Shall Not Grow Old, the Peter Jackson World War One documentary?
I haven't seen it yet, but it's on my list of things to watch.
That is going to have the same staying power that Saving Private Ryan has had.
Yes.
I feel like the two are incredibly similar, and it just reminds me of how on the money Steven Spielberg was with this movie, because it's come out 20 years before.
Yeah.
Because you know what it is they've taken original World War One footage.
Yeah.
So what they've done is they've got it running at normal speed.
Yeah.
Because those cameras used to be hand wound, so that's why everyone sort of walks a bit like Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
There's inconsistencies with the speed. They've got the computer to add frames so that it runs at exactly 24 frames per second.
Okay.
They can look at the logos on the badges on their uniforms and say, right, that battalion is from Yorkshire. So they'll get people with Yorkshire accents to fill in the dialogue, because they've got people who can lip read.
So really?
Yeah, so it literally feels like there's a modern film crew have gone to World War One.
Wow.
It's really incredible, and some of it is unbelievably similar to Saving Private Ryan.
What sort of story? So are they showing actual war scenes, or is it more?
Yeah, so it covers everything from being sort of signing up to the army.
Yeah.
Their training, and then going out into the trenches, basically.
Wow.
And what they're doing is mainly, it's broken up with little bits of the males actually matching the footage or whatever.
Yeah.
But mainly it's audio interviews over the top.
Okay.
So it's very much from like a foot soldier's point of view and
Okay.
this kind of stuff. But it is incredible. I'm almost certainly most people will end up seeing it.
Yeah.
But do seek it out because it is really, really good.
Yeah, so you can watch that on iPlayer, can't you? It's probably still available.
I don't know if it is. It was only available for 5 days or something.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's being sent out to every school in Britain.
Good.
Yeah. So do see that. But the reason why I'm mentioning it is because it just reminded me so much of the first couple of scenes of Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
I was interested to see if you'd seen it.
No, I haven't, but I am aware of it, and I do need to. I know we've talked about Omaha Beach, but what did you think of like the actual beginning scene, which is the scene where we find out later this is the old Private Ryan?
Yes, so it actually begins with a big American flag flying in the sun.
In sort of faded colour.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he's walking with all his family to the graveyard, where there's all of the
Yeah.
gravestones all lined up, almost like soldiers. I thought. Right, so you mentioned the beginning, and I feel like we have to talk about the ending as well, because the two sort of mirror each other. Because it begins in the graveyard, and then we come back to that point as well.
Yes. So my feeling was that it reminded me a bit of Schindler's List. You know, the ending.
Yes.
You know how in Schindler's List you see some of the real survivors of the Holocaust come through and pay their respects to Oskar Schindler.
Yes.
It sort of felt in that similar
vein. It brings you back to the modern day.
Exactly.
Doesn't it?
Exactly. But for me, to start off like that, it just felt a bit cheesy.
Yes.
So we've got the old veteran who's paying his respects to some of the soldiers he fought with.
Well, yeah, Tom Hanks is great.
To Tom Hanks, a specific one. And you've got the John Williams score, which is quite arousing. It's telling you how to feel, you know.
Yes.
It's telling you, show some respect, you know.
Yes.
I don't know, it just felt a bit cheesy, to be honest.
So I feel like you've led me down this path to where I knew where we're going to get to.
Yeah.
Now, this is a great film. And
just got to underline that point.
Just got to underline that point.
We really like this
film.
And
it shows aspects of war incredibly well.
Yes.
But there is no getting away from. It is incredibly patriotic.
Yes.
It is very American, very pro-American.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself really questioning at the end. I found myself fighting against it because it started to really feel like a piece of American propaganda.
Yeah.
Which I'm personally a little bit uncomfortable with, because I feel like Spielberg doesn't intend you to feel like this.
No.
But I found myself questioning, was it worth it? The way the characters question themselves the whole way through.
Yeah.
Is it worth risking 8 lives to save one?
Yeah.
It's like, well, actually remember that whole thing is put into motion because it feels like the American army have made that so.
Yes.
And then I started thinking, did they really do that with some sinister ulterior motive that could be portrayed as a piece of propaganda? Do you see what I mean?
I see what you mean, but do you think
that's maybe a sinister, like a more sinister point of view than is necessary?
But do you think maybe Spielberg is trying to draw attention to that? Maybe he's trying to say this is a propaganda exercise. The fact that his main characters are just going through the motions, just want to get home, are questioning the point of it all, questioning if it's worth it, and the people who make the decision to go after Private Ryan are the behind-the-scenes generals who are doing it. Well, the cynic in it can say it's a PR exercise.
Yes,
but I guess, you know, if you're seeing the best in people, they don't want a mum to have lost all 4 of his kids.
Yes,
but that's my problem with the movie, is the fact I don't believe the American military would do that.
No. Surely they're sensible enough to know that sort of the safety in numbers kind of principle applies in life and in war. It's better to have 8 soldiers than 1 alive.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
I know, and that's the thing that I struggle with in the movie. But doing a bit of research for this, apparently it did happen.
Well, there was 4 brothers, but there was one who just coincidentally happened to survive. I don't think there was an actual mission to go and save him, was there?
There was,
okay,
yes.
Okay.
However, it was led by an American chaplain. rather than soldiers. I don't know if he had a team as well, or if he was a trained soldier, but there was a people sent to try and bring him back from the front line.
Right.
So that actually did happen. So just to expand a bit on what Jerry was saying. So there was a true story of these 4 brothers called the Nyland brothers. 3 were reported dead, and the mum received a telegram in the same week that all 3 of them are dead. Actually, one of them wasn't. He ended up turning up alive a bit later on.
Yeah.
But then there was this rescue mission by an army chaplain to pull the 4th son, who was named Frederick, off the front line. And there's an actual law, apparently, in America that... Well, maybe it's not a law, but apparently brothers cannot serve in the same division.
Yes.
Because of this happening.
Yeah.
Because, you don't want a family to lose an entire...
And it makes sense that before that was in place, that you would be like, oh, I might as well stick with my brother, because it's the person who I know, and all this kind of stuff. But then, of course, the example that they used when I heard about this point was, if they're all 4 brothers are on a ship, if the ship gets bombed, they're all wiped out. So,
but do you see what I mean about the fact that it would be very typically patriotic for the soldiers to go, you know what, Ryan's worth it, one man, we've got to do this for our country, it's the right thing to do. But they're not. They're questioning the entire purpose of them being there.
Yeah.
They're questioning the entire pointlessness of it all.
Yeah.
And most of them only give up their lives because they're forced into it.
Yes.
They're not really thinking about, they just want to get home. They don't really care.
Yeah.
They even say themselves, they don't care about the war. Tom Hanks was just like, I just want to follow my orders, get it over and done with, and go home.
Yeah. Sorry, could this be another really cynical way of looking at the moral of the story? It's better to be a soldier who doesn't think than one that does.
How so?
Get the mission done and then you get to go home.
But they all die.
Yes, but we're talking about them while they're still alive.
Yeah.
Until we get to that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just do as your superiors know best.
I'm not sure it's saying that. I think the purpose of it, the whole film, is just for you to question what the value of one man's life is.
Yes, that's true.
And you know how I talked about in Amistad, one of the criticisms which was launched against Spielberg's filmmaking, in the fact that Spielberg likes to typically tie up a story in a nice, neat bow, asking a question going, well, this is the answer.
Yes.
Whereas someone like Kubrick would leave those questions open.
Yes.
This is a film, I think, which doesn't answer those questions.
I feel that on some level it tries to close the loop.
Yeah.
But I found myself fighting against it and asking the questions anyway.
That's interesting. So you think Spielberg is actually thinks he's made yes, this is what the right thing is to do.
To some extent I do, actually.
And that we've gone, actually, is it?
Yeah.
I don't.
I see through your moral standpoint that you're trying to get across. It was my feeling about it.
So, do you think Spielberg is trying to say, yes, one man is? What do you think he is trying to say then? How is he trying to answer that question?
Is he trying to be that your band of brothers have got your back? Will do anything to protect one man?
Sure,
something like that. But what I do like is, while we're talking about the soldiers questioning their mission, I like Matt Damon's reaction to once he's found, and he's like, well, no, I'm staying.
Yeah.
I'm glad he wasn't like, well, hey, I'm going home.
Yeah.
I quite like the fact that he's like, well, why would I go home?
Yes, yeah. This is stupid.
This is stupid. I've fought this far.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop now.
My brothers that are alive are the ones that are fighting with me.
Yeah.
Do you think... So this is when you were saying that beforehand about what Spielberg thinks the purpose of the whole thing is and what his message was. Do you think this is going back to the message in Schindler's List, where Ben Kingsley says, "Save one man's life, save the world."
Save the world entire, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that's what his
Possibly.
Spielberg's sort of message is about this?
That's a really good comparison, actually. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Right, while we're sort of talking about the band of brothers aspect and things, it's a very macho movie, don't you think? The troupe are quite macho towards each other, including people like Vin Diesel and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, it's got Vin Diesel in it, so it's going to be macho.
Yes.
Fast and the
true.
Furious 1944.
Yeah.
I was watching this with we were watching this with Julia, and Julia was like, "Oh, who's that? I recognise him." I was like, "It's Vin Diesel." I was like, "It's not a name." she and then she looked him up. He's like, "Actually, he's called Mark Sinclair." Which is his real name.
Good to know.
There you go.
But I mean, it's interesting seeing some of these people who later on had slightly different careers.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Vin Diesel is one, and then if you ever watch Band of Brothers, seeing David Schwimmer or Ross Geller shouting and trying to be militaristic, and you're like, "Come off it, Ross!
yeah.
Chill out." It's kind of interesting. You're quite a young Bryan Cranston's in there too.
Yeah. It's got a few other people as well. I know. So in the main crew, you've got Giovanni Ribisi, who we've already mentioned.
Oh yeah, he's in Friends.
Yeah. Stop talking about Friends.
And the other guy's in Friends as well.
Who?
The Jewish guy with the
Adam Goldberg.
With the pencil moustache.
Yes, that's right.
Because when Joey becomes successful, well, because of the macho-ness, I was sort of suddenly just thought of a question like, what do you think it would be like if it was like a female battalion, if it was a female troop taking this mission? You don't have to answer. I just kind of thought, how would it be different? Or if it was mixed?
I think the internet would go crazy.
Yeah. Or if it was
if they couldn't take Ghostbusters, then they wouldn't be able to take Saving Private Rihanna. You know, it would work, but how would it be different? Is that a question? I don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think it needs to be made, to be honest.
I just thought it was interesting because, there's that whole thing in the press at the moment about women joining the SAS and that sort of thing.
If you want a good movie in which an entirely female military operation goes to, on a mission together, watch Annihilation this year. So probably my favourite film that came out this year. It's on Netflix. It's a Netflix special with Natalie Portman.
Oh, okay.
It's a sci-fi movie, but an entirely female military operation goes into this weird sort of alien world on Earth. And weird stuff starts to happen.
Okay, cool.
So I think that's going to be probably a good comparison. But you can't make a World War II movie with entirely female characters because this is historical.
Yeah, that wasn't the case.
And that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So
no, I just found myself asking the question, but yeah.
Yeah. Because there is a lot of macho-ness, like you said, in there.
Yeah.
But it felt very much like a precursor to Band of Brothers.
It did,
didn't it?
Yeah.
And Band of Brothers is great. So yeah, I thought the sort of the dynamic between it felt realistic. The dialogue felt appropriate, like that's what people would have talked about.
Yeah.
And actually, they rather than have a set script, which obviously they did, but Spielberg often improvised quite a lot on this.
Yeah.
So he'll stage scenes where he just will ask the soldiers to sit around and chat about things, and then what he did is he took the improvisation which he filmed, gave it to the writer, Robert Rodat, and asked him to write a dialogue based on these improvisations, and then had a new scene set, and a few of those got into the movie.
That's really cool.
Which is a good way of doing it, actually.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to avoid the sometimes awkward, unnatural improvisations.
Yes.
Yeah. Like you're hearing now. Yeah. Also another character that popped up. Did you see Nathan Fillion?
Who's Nathan Fillion?
He was the fake Private Ryan. You know when they find the first Private Ryan?
Yeah.
And he goes, my brother's dead. He's only in high school.
Yes, but who is he?
He's Nathan Fillion. He was in Firefly.
Oh, okay. I never saw that, but okay, yeah.
No. The geeks who listen to this will know.
Okay.
Will know who he is.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got very excited by it. And it's got Ted Danson in it.
It has got Ted Danson in it.
Love
I forgot
Ted
about
Danson.
that.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to Ted Danson? He's brilliant.
Well, he's in The Good Place at the moment. You should watch The Good Place.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I love Ted Danson.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
And Paul Giamatti's in it as well.
He is, yeah. He's the guy who's in that scene where he's like, I just got to get this thing out my boot. He takes a little sit down, doesn't he?
The wall collapses.
And they're face to face
with the German soldiers. Yeah.
It's quite tense, that moment.
It is very tense. Yeah. For something that's almost is a bit comedic.
Yes.
It's very tense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, one thing that really impressed me about the whole thing, this is going to be skipping entirely, but when I was doing some research about it, there's all the French bombed out villages that I was wondering like how they shot them, what villages they were filming in.
Yeah.
It was a set.
Oh, wasn't it?
Yeah. They built an entire like sort of, especially for the last scene, that last final the Alamo standoff.
Yeah.
That's all set built,
Oh, right.
which is remarkable. They've made this like massive bombed out thing with a whole clock tower,
Yeah.
all on a set. Remarkable.
Wow, it's cool to be Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, I know, right? Absolutely remarkable.
Although saying that, I mean, he's made this film he's had much bigger budgets in the past.
Yes, he was trouble. Yeah,
I don't want to say like he was, like this is low budget for him, but it's still a hefty amount, 70 million or something.
yeah,
But for Steven Spielberg, that's fairly cheap.
it's true, but it didn't feel like any expense was being spared.
No, not at all.
It's the visual effects in this are great. There's nothing that looks dodgy. All the explosions feel very realistic. You've not got any of those like sort of action movie explosions.
Yeah.
Everything feels very smoky and dusty and very, very realistic, and everything has real consequences.
Yeah.
I'm just
you
thinking
don't get a kind of flame explosion. Do
No.
you? It's just the sand seems to engulf.
The one I'm thinking of is when those sticky bombs that they make,
Yes.
where they fill their sock with like TNT and then put axle grease on it and stick it on a tank.
Yeah.
That first guy who gets it wrong,
yes.
puts that, and then he just completely explodes. So there's
That's
just
graphic,
bits
yeah.
of dust and just blood, and
Yes.
it's horrible.
While we're talking about that particular moment, was it just me, or remember because they're in that sort of crater, Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
As the big tank comes over the sort of little hill,
Yes.
and it's almost like they're going to crash them, and they start running.
Yeah.
There's a sound effect.
Okay.
And it sounds so much like the repeated sound effect, which is both the truck going over the cliff in Duel
Okay.
and the shark once it's been blown up.
Yeah.
That sort of.
I mean, it could be used
I wonder
again.
whether it was used again.
It could very well be.
There's a scene which begins with slow tension of raindrops in puddles, and then you have like their boots walk through it, and other little things. Remind you slightly of Jurassic Park.
A little bit with that range. Yes, absolutely.
The way it ripples through the water.
It definitely. So I didn't think of that at the time, but yes, that is very, very similar. Very, very similar.
And then there's also that bit which, because we talked before, we start talking about some of the tropes of Spielberg, how to build tension, involve a child. Remember, there's that bit where Vin Diesel takes the young girl off the bombed outside of the house.
Yeah.
Takes her away, and just as soon as that happens, you're like, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
To one of them.
Yeah. You can tell. Yeah. That annoyed me because
he's such an idiot.
Idiotic decision.
Yeah.
Absolutely idiotic decision. How do people build sympathy for sort of soldiers, especially when you don't really know a lot of their names? And this is a common trope in a lot of war films, and I think Spielberg does it really well here. But how do you think he does it? How do you think he builds sympathy for the characters, which we know a few of their names at the end? And there's a few I can name now.
Yes, but we know all the main 8 by face, don't we?
We by face, absolutely. But I can't remember some of their names.
Yeah.
Their character names.
Yeah. Well, he makes each one of them quite different, I suppose.
Yes.
How it helps, you have the nervous one, you have Vin Diesel, who's a very macho one.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Jewish one, who's, got a distinctive way of talking, it's New York accent. Yeah. So you're separating each one of them so you get to know them.
Yeah.
Even ever so slightly as individuals.
Yeah.
They're up against hell because we've seen from the first scene the seriousness of what they're trying to do, what they're fighting against.
Yeah.
So that in itself builds sympathy. Any kind of personalisation within a huge crowd is enough to sort of build sympathy.
Yeah.
And then remember they're being led by Tom Hanks, who Tom Hanks is just an everyman in every movie he's ever done, and that's why he's a movie star, because you just enter into his world. He reacts the way we react to everything.
There is always everyone has a little moment of something personal, and the good thing about it is I don't think it's like explained. No one goes, well, I got to get this to my daughter because she turns 8 tomorrow, you know, and it's her birthday, and it's just there's a letter somewhere that they hold out.
Yes.
Giovanni Ribisi, when Vin Diesel dies, transcribes the letter.
Yes.
And it's not focused on, but you can see he's doing it, and that tells you a lot about his character without anything being said.
Exactly. They all have, I think those letters come to sort of, obviously it's never explicitly said, but it's almost like they're the hope, the passing on of, what they're fighting for. Mm-hmm. Passing on a message of love from wherever they are, or whatever. And that's enough. You kind of you could just have a symbol, I guess, amongst all that horrific horrific things.
True. And it is Tom Hanks that ties it all together, because this is ultimately his story. And also, interestingly, he's the one who isn't given backstory until right at the end.
Yes, and there's a bit where he could almost reveal a bit more character, and he says, no, that one's for private.
Yeah. Tom Hanks is great in this, isn't he?
He is really good. Yeah.
He's, because he'd not worked with Spielberg before, had he?
No, but they definitely know each other.
They were friends. They were definitely friends beforehand, yeah.
Because he had a big involvement in Big, didn't he?
Yeah.
Which is written by Spielberg's sister.
Yeah, and Joe and the First of the Volcano, which was written by Spielberg's sister, I think, as well.
Right.
At the same time.
So they definitely know each other.
Really, yeah.
And I imagine they had a situation where they were like, let's wait till we have the perfect project.
Or they both got sent the same script. And, yeah.
Because movies have been made before where like a screenwriter has lied to the star and the director.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, I heard a rumour that Gladiator got made that way.
Really?
The script was sent to Russell Crowe, and they said to Russell Crowe, Ridley Scott's interested in directing this.
Yeah.
Which wasn't quite the case then.
Sure.
They sent it to Ridley Scott, and they said, Russell Crowe's interested in starring in this.
And Ridley Scott went, no, I'm not interested.
No, I've heard that guy's a bit temperamental. How much money are you going to pay me?
But yeah, ultimately, this is Tom Hanks' movie. And when we said, like, we felt the theme is, like, what's the value of a man's life? It's not really about Private Ryan. I think it's about his life himself.
Yes. I thought this was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
That Private Ryan, the Matt Damon character, we talk a fair bit when we try to analyse these things about MacGuffins.
Yeah.
If you've missed any of our episodes, that's a Hitchcockian term for the sacred thing, which is usually, like, the heart of the mission that they're trying to get. It's the microfilm in a spy movie. Yeah. It's the Ark of the Covenant in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that, what they're trying to find is a human being at this time. And then, unlike the Ark of the Covenant, which has no say about where it's moved to, whatever, he's very reluctant, isn't he, to be steered off course.
Yeah. Be an interesting movie if the Ark of the Covenant was like, piss off! Stay here!
I don't think so.
So yeah, it is ultimately about Tom Hanks's search for his own humanity, I think.
Yes.
Because he feels he's lost it.
Do you feel like he's lost it?
Well,
I feel like he's always had it, but he's sort of like...
I think he always had
he's questioning his life's purpose almost quietly.
I think he thinks he's lost it, but we don't think he has because he's Tom Hanks.
Really?
I never
really got the sense that he felt like he had lost his...
I think so.
Purpose.
Like, not sense of purpose, but like what it is to be human.
Right.
The fact that he's killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
That bit, I'm just thinking of that bit where he decides to take the machine gun and the radio tower in order, in his mind, to justify it to save other people because they think other people run into it.
Oh,
and
yes.
Giovanni Ribisi ends up getting killed
when he has that speech
because of his decision.
When he has that speech that you save one, who saves 10? Or
exactly.
Whatever, yeah.
I mean, and then he lets go the prisoner of war.
Yes.
Who actually ends up killing him in the end.
Yes.
He's really questioning to himself. Like he's letting his troops beat up the guy.
Yeah.
He's letting his
It's actually
troops...
some of the most interesting character pieces.
Yeah.
Almost in a Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
The moral questions that it's being played out and being asked at the same time.
Because as they're punching and kicking him, Tom Hanks isn't moving them away going, guys, we're not like that. We're the good guys here. He's letting him do it and thinking about his actions in the future. Yeah. Ultimately, he does let him go. But I think he's wrestling with himself about...
Yes, he's thinking, is this justice? Is this not? Is this humanitarian? Is it not?
Yeah. And he's got all the responsibility and he's just very, very conflicted about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I think he would be.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's sort of saving himself rather than Private Ryan.
Yes, I suppose so.
I mean, ultimately, at the end, there's not really a sacrifice. So in another film, there might be a big sacrifice at the end where Tom Hanks jumps in front of Private Ryan and going, go, be with your family. But it's sort of... I like the fact that he's just a casualty of war. Yeah. He gets shot as part of duty. He's not trying to...
Yeah. He got his mission done.
Exactly.
And then he died.
I guess it's a bit cheesy, the fact that you go, earn your life at the end. Yeah. But I like the fact it could have gone another way in a more stereotypical, cheesy Hollywood way, but it didn't. In a more glamorous way. It didn't glamorize anything. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I liked about it.
This is what's all very, very good about the actual flashback war bit. Yes. Which is what makes the beginning and the end all the more cheesy.
Yeah.
I think because it just does not fit.
No, I agree.
It feels like it's trying to harp this message.
Feel this way.
Yeah, feel this way. Whereas the rest of the film, you've been a bit ambiguous.
Yeah.
Not ambiguous, but like, what's the word? Like conflicted. Like,
and this is one of the criticisms that is the people who have critiqued Spielberg's work.
Ambivalent. That's the word I was trying to think.
Okay. The people who have critiqued Spielberg's work, that this is a prime example of something that he does do sometimes that feels a little bit on the nose.
Yeah.
I think. However, so I think this film does show the very best of what Spielberg can do with his actual filmmaking acumen.
Yes.
But also some of his more... You know what I mean, though, don't you?
I do know what you mean. We often use the word saccharine about him, and
but
it's
not quite right, is it?
No.
I guess his more the storytelling, the more when he structures a storytelling, the fact that everyone has to have a nice, neat ending.
Yes.
And it's sort of telling you how to feel.
Yeah.
There is going to be
overly upbeat. Or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, it doesn't justify being overly upbeat.
Exactly.
About that previous set of circumstances. So.
But then again, countering that, take away the final scene. Initially, when Paramount saw the script, they asked Robert Rodat to change it so that Miller, this Tom Hanks's character, survives at the end. But when they were actually going through it, Spielberg wanted him to change it back again because he felt he should die at the end.
Right.
So I guess there are some things he doesn't want. He's happy to have a more downbeat ending from. But then why add that extra scene at the end? Why even have that?
Yeah. Well, I suppose it just feels overly nice, that end scene. I think mainly because of the music, almost. Because remember, in the dialogue, old Matt Damon, Private Ryan, is actually saying, "Did I lead a good life? Was it worth it? Did I make good on all of those sacrifices?"
Yeah.
Like, he's
actually asking the question.
He's asking the question. He's not saying it as a fact, like, "I did you proud." He's not saying that. Yeah. He's very like, "Did I do it? Did I come to what I was supposed to be?" kind of thing.
Yeah. It's sort of like explaining the themes of the movie
a little bit,
isn't it?
Yeah. But the music is very bad, and then the iconography of an American flag through the sun and all that kind of stuff is really hammering that point home.
Yeah. This is one of the films where they actually say the title of the film in the dialogue. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
What do you think? So I think Tom Sizemore says to Tom Hanks, "So what do you think? Was Saving Private Ryan the right thing to do?" or something like that?
Yeah.
I always cringe a little bit when I hear that in films.
Yeah. Talking of slightly cringing a little bit,
yeah.
And we already mentioned Indiana Jones briefly. Was it only me that thought there was that little moment towards the end of the beach scene where Tom Hanks is behind a big concrete wall and he says to the guy next to him, "Right, you go." Yeah. And then the guy after that, he says, "Right, Jones," or something. "Right, your turn, you go over the wall." And he's quite safe behind his wall, which made me think of asps. Very dangerous. You go first.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that. Nazis, very dangerous. You go first. What did you think about... There was a few characters. There's a bit of a religious aspect in this. Like the sniper, Barry Pepper's character, often quoted gospel or Bible verses before he killed someone.
You see people kissing crosses on their necklaces.
Crosses and stars of David and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the Judaism aspect of it is much more pertinent, but to the actual, history. But with Barry Pepper's character, and then Jeremy Davis's character, he's the sort of the weedy one.
Yeah.
He often quotes a lot of philosophy and things like that. He says stuff like, "Oh, with God on our side, who is against us?"
Yes.
There's a lot of religious sort of back, and I didn't really know what that came to, or what that was trying to signpost towards.
Well, I suppose it's part of their own, I guess, inner thought, isn't it? Trying to vocalise it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess because luckily that's not particularly like rammed down your throat.
No,
is it? It's there if you want to find it.
Yeah, I guess so.
But I certainly wouldn't call it a religious film.
No, absolutely not. No, I didn't think it was one of the main themes at all. But it cropped up more than more than a coincidence. It was more than a single passing mention. It was a number of times.
Well, I mean, obviously, all of the gravestones are the shape of a Christian cross, aren't they?
True, but that kind of that's yeah.
But that's
how they do things.
That's how they that's the way of things. So,
what are the sort of Spielbergian sort of themes and tropes you sort of saw in this?
Well, the over the top sweet thing that we just mentioned at the beginning and the end.
The nice little bow put on the
yes. The other moment that I remember felt very Spielbergian was the little girl being taken by Vin Diesel.
Well, the abandonment by a father.
Yeah. Yes. Interestingly, Steven Spielberg's dad talks on the behind-the-scenes documentary of Saving Private Ryan.
Does he?
Yes.
Okay.
Because he showed young Steven Spielberg his World War II Super 8 films of himself being there and that sort of thing.
Because he served as a radio man, didn't he? I think it was in Burma.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. And I think in one of his first movie, I think this sort of sparked Spielberg's sort of obsession with war. And one of his first movies, I think I mentioned it already, the Fighter Squadron, the RAF one. I think Spielberg himself wears his dad's uniform.
Yes.
In it.
In Escape to Nowhere, which is another one as well. He, and in this documentary, he talks about the fact that he, wherever he got his Super 8 films processed, would also sell you World War II Super 8 newsreels and stuff, so then he could edit his friends in. And then he said he still had his dad's uniform. His hat and goggles and all that kind of stuff. So he would just have his sort of 8 or 9 friends, and they would all wear the same thing, and then it would just be a case of tilting the camera, and then you cut to the wide shot or already shot found footage of the aeroplane moving in that direction, and you could splice them together.
Yeah.
And it would make a complete sequence as if his friends were flying the planes. Very clever.
It is very clever,
Because it takes a bit of making films before you realise films aren't really about one really picturesque shot. It's about a sequence of shots to make you feel like, one image next to another leads to that story or that emotion.
Yeah.
And he seems to have got that very, very early on.
Yeah. I mean, it's embarrassing, isn't it? It's sickening.
It is, yes.
Did you hear what happened instead of rehearsals?
No, I didn't.
So, do you know about the boot camp?
Oh, yes, there was was it a 10-day boot camp? Or
something like that. I think it was maybe a bit less. I think it was a week. They are actors, after all, got to be nice to them. But instead of rehearsals, what they did is Spielberg hired a Vietnam veteran, I think very much in the vein of Full Metal Jacket.
Yes. He's on this documentary, very briefly.
His name was Captain Dale Dye.
Dale Dye,
D-Y-E, not D-I-E.
Right. Fills you with the confidence.
I think he's got 3 Purple Hearts or something like that,
Right.
And he basically took them on a boot camp in which he would make them go on runs, training camps, sleep interruption, shouting them. He called them all turds instead of their actual names. Tom Hanks was turd number 1, apparently. Right. The aim of it was to sort of try and take some semblance of experience of the deprivation that these soldiers would be experiencing. Obviously not on that level at all, but a little bit, rather than staying in a 5-star hotel, a collective negative experience.
Yes, yeah.
Which will bring them together and bind them as a bit of a team.
Yeah.
And I think even on the second day, I saw this on one of the making of documentaries. They said they all the actors got together and took a vote about whether they would even stay or just say, no, I'm leaving.
Oh, really?
And all of them voted to leave apart from Tom Hanks.
Wow. And because he was there sort of
Tom
leader.
Hanks, they all stayed.
Wow.
Yeah. Matt Damon wasn't on the boot camp. And that was a specific decision from Steven Spielberg in order to make him seem apart. So there's less bonding between them.
I see. Yeah, that's clever.
Yeah, it's clever. I think, Matt Damon obviously is now a huge star, but at the time, they filmed this before Good Will Hunting had come out.
Did they?
They filmed it just before. When they started filming it, Good Will Hunting had just come out, and then he'd just been nominated for an Oscar.
Right.
And, he'd managed to bag a massive star in his movie, in quite actually a small part, although it is an eponymous part.
And that's quite good that... I mean, obviously, it feels a little bit like whenever you see a movie star in what starts as quite a small part in the first third of a movie. You're like, I know we're going to come back and have a couple more scenes with him.
Absolutely.
Which makes things like thrillers quite difficult sometimes because you're trying to pretend he's not important, but we know Tom Hardy is going to be important. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I guess because of
He's not dead. Yeah.
because of the at that time, if he's not actually a real star, he's not Matt Damon as we know him now. That's quite good because the sort of like everyman aspect sort of comes in. Like, because I quite like the fact that they kind of just stumble across Private Ryan.
Yeah.
To some extent, don't they?
Yeah.
So like,
they get lucky.
Yeah, they do get lucky. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I quite like that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any other particular Spielberg moments that you noticed?
Just the fact that this is a story of ordinary people in an extraordinary circumstance. Yeah. And I think that's more... That's throughout most Spielberg films and perfectly encapsulated by Tom Hanks, who is probably still like the perfect everyman. Yeah. Isn't he?
Yeah.
He is. He can represent anyone on screen.
Yeah.
Especially around the time, this is post Forrest Gump.
Yes.
Castaway as well, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, they're all about the same sort of time. Yeah. Castaway might have been a year after.
May have been. Yeah. But yeah, he's the perfect everyman, and so that's your way into this movie, and that's how you can that and the way of with him and the way that it was shot, sort of almost documentary style.
Yeah.
You've got your way into a really harrowing experience.
Yeah.
I also
it's interesting because I think like when people mention a movie star or whatever, I think they imagine someone being quite showy and they sort of have an image of the old sort of MGM stars, people like Clark Gable or whatever.
Yeah.
I actually think to be a true movie star and to sort of really get those main parts, you need to be an everyman.
Yeah.
That's the key to it, really, is react. You have to be shown to like show the emotions that every person seemingly would react that way.
Yeah.
You can't really be this eccentric.
If you're too good looking or too,
Yeah, if you're too unique,
yeah,
almost, it goes against you to some extent, I would say.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. I was going to say, one of the things I did like about it is, at the beginning, just after they've taken Omaha Beach, you would think, they're taking prisoners of war, it's going to show the Americans as just being good guys. But, there are some Americans there who then shoot, people who have surrendered and things like that. And I do like the fact that they did include that in there.
Yeah.
The fact that, there are some bad eggs. There are some people who have lost their humanity.
You don't have someone pull out the Geneva Convention.
Exactly,
right, let me read you Section 9.
Exactly. It wasn't... So that makes me think, people aren't too... It wasn't being too patriotic from that perspective.
Yeah.
In the fact that they were able to...
Apart from the very beginning and the very end, it's not particularly patriotic.
No.
Which is why I hate the beginning and the end quite so much.
Also, it does annoy me that they didn't run into any Brits.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, all French troops.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
None at all.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit odd.
You get these things occasionally because there's that whole thing about Titanic as well.
Yeah.
There's nowhere near enough Irish on there.
Yeah.
There's only one Irish character, isn't there?
Yeah. Cool. So, anything else you want to talk about with that we haven't mentioned already?
No, I think we're done, aren't we?
I think we're done. I mean, this is always going to be one of Steven Spielberg's best movies.
Yes. I mean, if you read the Wikipedia page, it says it's considered one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah.
And it definitely has got a lot of staying power.
Yeah.
And we're not just like picking holes in it for the sake of it. I do genuinely think it is unnecessarily patriotic, which will, to some extent, date it as years go on.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no getting away from the fact that, that beach scene is just some of the best filmmaking.
Yes.
On the planet.
Yeah.
In the history of cinema. So
brilliant.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for joining us. Next week, join us for a film I haven't actually seen. AI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got that on DVD.
Have you?
Yes,
okay, very good.
I quite like AI.
Again, if you have any questions for us, please feel free to get in touch with us. So you can follow us on Twitter at Big Boat Podcast. Yeah. You can follow us on Instagram at The Bigger Boat Podcast. Or you can email us if you have any questions for us on thebiggerboatpodcast@gmail.com. So please get in touch. And remember, if you can like and subscribe, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever media you get your podcast from. That would be really good. And we will see you next week.
Thanks again. Bye.
Bye.